This is the Pythagorean Theorem. A theorem in math is a rule, and Pythagoras is a Greek mathematician who discovered one of the most famous rules in mathematics. When we're looking at a right triangle, the legs of the triangle are the two sides that form the right angle. So the two that form this right angle are our legs. The hypotenuse is the longest side of the right triangle, and it's located opposite the right angle. The Pythagorean theorem says that in a right triangle, the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs is equal to the square of the length of the hypotenuse. So if I take both of the legs, square them, and add that total together, it will equal the square of our hypotenuse. So the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b represent legs of a right triangle and c represents the hypotenuse of the right triangle. So let's try to find the length of the hypotenuse of a right triangle. So we know our Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And in this theorem, a and b represent the legs while c represents the hypotenuse. So in this case, our legs are 5 centimeters and 12 centimeters. I'm going to square both of them, and I get 25 and 144. Together, we get a grand total of 169, and that equals our hypotenuse squared. Now, to find the length of the hypotenuse, since it's squared, I'm going to square root to get rid of the squared. And I'll have to do that to both sides. So I get 13 for my hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse here is 13 centimeters. In this case, we're not missing the length of the hypotenuse, but we're missing the length of a leg here, one of the sides that forms the right angle. So it can be the A or the B that is missing. It really doesn't make any difference because both of them are legs. But I'm going to put 2.1 in for my B value. So A squared, I don't know. B is 2.1 squared, and C is 2.9 squared. So I'm going to do a little bit of calculating. 2.1 squared gives me a grand total here of 4.41. And 2.9 squared is 8.41. And a squared is my unknown. So I'm going to subtract 4.41 from each side. And I'm left with a squared equals 4. So now to get rid of that squared, I'm going to do a square root on each side. So a equals 2. So the value of the missing leg is 2 centimeters. Let's take a look at one more example here. You're playing capture the flag. You are 50 yards north and 20 yards east of your team's base. The other team's base is 80 yards north and 60 yards east of your base. How far are you from the other team's base? So the first thing we're going to do is draw out this situation. We're going to use a coordinate plane to draw it out. And 0, 0 is going to be our team's base. Now, a coordinate plane is great for drawing out a situation like this because we're going to have up be north and down is south, left is west, and right is east, just like the directions on any map. So here's our team's base. And first it tells us that we are 50 yards north and 20 yards east of the home base. So we want to go 50 north and 20 east. And this is us. It says that the other team's base is 80 north and 60 east of your base. So we want to go 80 north and 60 east. This is the other team's base. And we're being asked to find out how far you are from the other team's base. You want this distance. Well, when it's a diagonal distance, it's hard to measure, but we can turn this into a right triangle. So I could add in the other sides here and turn this into a right triangle where the distance that I am from the other team's base is represented by the hypotenuse. So here I know that I am 20 yards east and their base is 60 yards east. So that means this is a total here of 40 yards. I also know that I was 50 yards north and their base is 80 yards north. So this is a total here of 30 yards. So my legs are 30 and 40. And I'm trying to find the hypotenuse's length. So 30 squared is 900. 40 squared is 1,600, which gives us a grand total of 2,500 to equal our hypotenuse squared. I'll square root both sides to get rid of the squared here. And for the value of C, I get 50. So the total between me and the other team's base is 50 yards.